What's going on, everybody? It's me, your host, Bella Wright of the Occult Gaming channel, and here are my spicy, full sarcasm, takes on the topic of difficulty in games. So let's start by cutting through the bullshit. I'm not here to say that easy modes ruin games. That is a poor take. I'm also not here to say that the extremely broad spectrum of hardcore gamers are toxic gatekeepers. That is also a poor take. There are specific arguments within each of these statements that are worth more discussion, such as if the inclusion of easy modes eventually results in design decisions that water down a franchise beyond its initial intentions, or if a certain segment of gamers, a vocal minority if you will, are toxic gatekeepers. It does not help the discussion to use bad faith arguments and straw men to prove your point. So let's avoid those. Let's have a genuine argument about this issue. So, here's a little bit about me to give context to critical thinkers out there and to give a point of attack so that others of you can judge me right from the start. Firstly, I'm poor and did not buy or play Sekiro yet. Because prior to the game's release, I made 3 impulse purchases in a row. With Resident Evil 2, Devil May Cry 5, and Onimusha Remastered. That's 3 Capcom games now that I think of it, which is extremely rare for me, but that's something else. Make of that what you will. But I've seen enough of the gameplay in various discussions and articles, including the original bad take from David Thier, to form a broad opinion about Sekiro's difficulty and the opinion about difficulty in general about today's games. I'll likely revisit the topic once I actually play through the game, if I'm interested enough. When it comes to these sorts of things, I'm very inconsistent, but if there's enough demand for it, I'll do it. Or if I'm interested enough, I'll do it. So I first saw this topic on Twitter a little while after Sekiro released. It was a post by a known Souls player named Marcus, also known as Epic Name Bro, on YouTube and Twitch. I follow Marcus on Twitter and saw that he posted some controversy on Sekiro's difficulty. I jokingly asked if video game difficulty in 2019 was really a hot topic, thinking nothing of it. Apparently it is. It really, really is a hot topic. Somehow this controversy feels manufactured to me. But you know what? Stranger things have happened via social media over the years. Like our president memeing Joe Biden only a few weeks ago. You guys probably seen it with the Joe Biden molesting himself. So I can actually see this being a genuine controversy in this day and age. A little bit more about me. I'm not a hardcore SoulsBorne fan, only having beaten the first game once on accident. Kind of just ran into the room and beat the guy with the beard. No spoilers. And ended the game. I didn't even get to explore the flame of the first kiln. So that's how I beat Dark Souls 1. And I did beat Dark Souls 2. And I did beat Bloodborne once as well. While technically beating Dark Souls 3 times to get the endings because I'm a save scum. My interest in the series is much the same as anyone else's, because it is a huge pile of miserable secrets in and out of its gameplay, and that is just too fascinating. It fascinated me enough to write a heavily inspired book series at any rate. You guys can check that out, called Hell's Glitch. Very kind of also a controversial book, just like this topic. But anyway, let's start by discussing the original bad take for this issue and maybe see how it snowballed from there. So we'll start with the title of the article. Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, needs to respect its players and add an easy mode. An article by David Thier, who we will get to know very, very well in this topic. And I have to say, what a loaded statement right out of the gate. Basically, the whole thing reeks of entitlement, many thanks to the word needs. Have you ever been told by another person that something about yourself needs to change for their benefit, or that you need to do something? Doesn't feel too good, does it? Especially when they act like it's for your benefit and not their own. And besides that, how does the game respect its players by having an easy mode? One would think that adding a lower difficulty would disrespect the player, because the game would assume that the player isn't skilled enough to handle its challenges. Most games even play this straight. Like Streets of Rage, number 3, the one I'm used to, where your true ending is basically locked until you progress on a harder difficulty. In Ninja Gaiden, which gives you the title Ninja Dog for struggling and opting for easy mode. Perhaps the author meant respecting its players' time and money, but this isn't the feeling that the title brings forth. But you know what? Language can at times be polarizing, so I'll bite the bullet and say that the title triggered me, just to be fair. But what follows the article's title creates further discord in this discussion, because the argument Thier crafts in favor of including easy modes in SoulsBorne games is ill-conceived and ripe with misunderstandings of what SoulsBorne games even are. So again, I'm not a huge SoulsBorne fanatic, but I am interested in the series and very interested in the game design principles that they put forth. And they do a very unique thing with difficulty, and eventually we'll get to that. But I'm just kind of going through this thing I wrote point by point here. So, just from reading a few of his articles, David Thier has been beating his war drum against the difficulty of games ever since Dark Souls 3. A game that I wouldn't even call difficult thanks to its robust RPG mechanics. The only thing Darksiders, I wrote Darksiders here. The only thing Dark Souls 3 didn't do was play the game itself for you, but it did give you all the tools to solve problems for yourself. The only people who consider Dark Souls 3 difficult, I think, are those who are afraid of dying in a game. Just the act of death itself. They're so scared of failure, the failure that death represents, that they just, they just find that to be the worst thing ever. Which, I was that way too until I played Souls, I think. Maybe a few games before Souls, and I got to Souls, and that kind of cemented it. But simply, there are so many shortcuts to gain your previous progress that death is only the most minor of roadblocks. But what you gain for that death, such as the door you unlocked, the items, or the knowledge that came from exploring ahead, that stuff stays with you and makes you more capable of dealing with what comes next. So, after you die, you go back to the save point, checkpoint, bonfire, you come back, you know it's there, and it's not as scary because knowledge, now that you're armed with knowledge, things are less scary. And that's kind of the Dark Souls thing in a nutshell. And that's what I say here. That is a Dark Souls gameplay in a loop. If you are afraid of death, then you won't like a SoulsBorne game, or maybe even Sekiro, because in these games, death is intrinsic to the gameplay loop. So again, very important to these games to get used to death. And if death intimidates you, you simply won't like these games. And that's kind of the crux of this whole dilemma, this whole difficulty dilemma, because these games are crafted on the death gameplay loop. Again, I don't believe Sekiro is quite as married to this idea as the other SoulsBorne games, but still, it does have that mechanic. Shadows die twice. The whole point is a character dies and he comes back. This kind of they include it in their narrative and their themes and everything. These games are married to the idea of you learn through failure. But anyway, continuing on. We're going to go over the main points Thier lays down in his Sekiro article, just a few of them anyway. He says Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, and Sekiro are too hard, and at least one of them needs an easy mode. So I debunked the Dark Souls 3 thing above. I didn't do it in a great detail, but again, the whole point of Dark Souls 3 is the failure gameplay loop, but also they give you so many tools and RPG elements that you can easily create your own difficulty in a game like that. And the same also applies to Bloodborne. Bloodborne overall has less shortcuts than Dark Souls 3, and I would say tougher bosses who feel more aggressive in Bloodborne's fast-paced combat system. But funny enough, Thier praises Bloodborne as a unique gameplay experience unlike any other. He emphasizes the art and world building, but he fails to praise the mechanics and philosophy of the game and the world which facilitates its unique feel. That constant tension that's ever present is what keeps you invested in the game's world over a similar world such as The Order 1866, which, believe it or not, Thier did create an article on this particular game. See, Bloodborne and The Order 1866 are both Victorian games, but The Order 1866 is like something that's kind of designed by committee sort of thing, whereas Bloodborne has a unique sort of, the way it does things are unique. What Thier calls The Order 1866 in his article, he wrote 2 articles about it. He calls it not a disaster, but it's not a good game. Basically saying that the game was competent but boring. It gave him no emotions, he said, literally calling the game joyless and boring in another article. While he said of Bloodborne, my drug of choice and one of the most engaging gaming experiences I've ever had. I think more than a little of that engagement comes from the game's constant challenge, forcing you to engage it on its own terms, while giving you the tools to face it on your terms. This is unlike The Order 1866, which is just a movie, so you watch it. A problem emblematic of many other major AAA game titles, especially if you're playing on lower difficulties. So he kind of breaks himself apart here. He wrote that Order 1866 article back in 2015. And that's the thing. They're both Victorian games, but one of them's designed by committee with standard difficulty options, just turn the numbers up and down. And Bloodborne is designed in this unique FromSoft way with an organic difficulty where RPG elements can be used, items can be used, strategies can be used to make things easier for you. So it sounds like he much enjoyed the FromSoft experience over the standard, I would even say bog standard Order 1866 experience. So I believe David Thier breaks himself apart, just with his various articles. So I do have more to say on Thier's various comments because you can go through his stuff and, just break his comments apart. But I see that this will now take up the entire runtime of this video. So I'll save that for later. I'm already at 11 minutes here, almost 12. So I think I'm going to break this up in parts. This will be part 1. Next will be part 2. And we'll go a little bit deeper into it. So I appreciate you guys for listening. Definitely make sure to let me know your opinions below, comments, or reach me on Twitter at BellartWright. But yeah, that's the first part of this video, and we got more coming up. So take care, guys. Till next time. Peace.